seems like there is no impact. It's all Department of Labor. We're like, so, we have Senator Clarkson here, and she's going to present, the workforce bill, 707, and.
Sounds like an airplane.
It does, and it's
We've been
strike
building
all.
those in here.
And
Looks like it was built by Boeing.
That's
so, if you would like to just give us a run through of the bill very quickly.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Allison Clarkson, taken out of a discussion in Senate GovOps to address a subject near and dear. And I was in front of you 2 years ago and you about this very issue, because this is about elevating and reconfiguring how we manage and govern our workforce development system. We, for many years, this legislature has been frustrated by the number of workforce development programs that are all over state government. They're in and out of different state agencies, different departments, and in and out of state government. There are a lot of private sector state workforce development programs. And you gave us 2 years ago $250,000 to create a special oversight committee called SOCWID. And we have been working diligently 2 years with the money that you gave us to hire the public consulting group out of Boston. Cam Wood and I have been working on this for almost 2 years, shy of 2 years ago. So we established the Special Oversight Committee on Workforce Expansion and Development to address how we go into the future. This has been a top priority, improving our workforce for many a year, with the legislature and the governor for many years. And even before COVID, we knew that every sector of the economy and in every corner of the state, we were facing a workforce shortage. And we have, things have improved. A couple of years ago, I think we were at 10,000 openings. We're now down to 7,500, but it's still roughly 3 job openings for every person looking for work. It is time for us to sort of rethink and rework and address the structural and sort of systemic challenges that we face. We have great programs, but they need to be coordinated. And so our work produced this report, which I'm happy to get you. Sorry.
When you use the term coordinated, I guess that's
that is what we'll get to in terms of what we're proposing. So this group that the SOCWID was Mike Marcotte, chair of House Commerce, me, for the Senate, Kendall Smith from the governor's office. There were just 5 of us. Adam Grinold, who's the chair of our state workforce development board, and Jay Ramsey, who's the Vermont Department of Labor's director of workforce. And we were charged with examining systems that govern and administer workforce programs around the country and to recommend changes to the delivery and governance of Vermont's workforce system. And we worked with the Boston Public Consulting Group for almost 2 years, and we looked at all sorts of different models. And we received great testimony. We honed in on looking at Maine, North Dakota, and Utah. Each had a slightly different, but it was sort of appropriate. Here is our council, which is great. Our hope is that in the recommendations we have before you, is that the governance structure we recommend in H707 will elevate the importance of workforce with an executive director who reports directly to the governor. So that's the elevation I'm talking about. Create the Office of Workforce Strategy and Development, whose function would be to coordinate all workforce initiatives in the state in one robust and accountable system. Create a comprehensive state workforce strategy with oversight authority. Reduce duplication, because one of our concerns is duplication. Reduce duplication and eliminate gaps in delivery. Support comprehensive data alignment, which is where you were talking when I came in. Improve resource integration to meet individual and business needs, and create a primary and authoritative voice in an executive director who will set statewide workforce priorities for the governor and the legislature to consider every year. So we'll have one funnel for all the workforce development priorities, which we have in Senate Economic Development hungers for, because we tend to get them all sort of nickel and diming us each individual program, we will have one central place where everything will be prioritized and reviewed, where their work is measured and considered and, we'll know how they're actually doing, which is great. The bill sets up, there are just 5 sections of the bill. The first bill, section sets up and creates the Office of Workforce Strategy and Development within the executive branch. As you already alluded to, those positions are currently in the Department of Labor, and so that there is no new money needed to create this office. We also, in section 1, take and rework the State Workforce Board, which is at the moment it's very unwieldy, it's over 60, I think 63 people, is that right? Something like that, and it reduces it to 26, which is really needed for a long time.
37. Where did I go wrong?
A membership,
Yeah,
In section 1.
There's another section where they cut some out.
no,
Yeah.
I added all of it up, I don't know if it's 37.
No, we're at 26, I think, that's
still
the
pretty
number.
large,
But
pretty large.
Yeah,
it's still pretty large, but it beats 63. And there'll be
Well,
lots
63 is designed to be non-functional,
I would agree. I didn't design it.
I'm sure,
usually
usually.
it's 37.
Anyway, happily, the general fund impact on this is really designed to be more effective and the chair of the State Workforce Board was on our team and helped us redesign this. And so it is with the blessing of both the department and with the current chair that we make these recommendations.
Now, do we
Yeah.
have a definition of workforce programs? You can make that as broad as you could imagine.
That's right.
Is there a definition of workforce programs?
No, I don't think we have a
I mean,
definition
in
of
other
workforce
words, I
programs.
think
And
it's striking higher education, BSAC, et cetera. So I was just wondering, in the newly envisioned, you've got members of the executive committee, but that is different than. Is there another group that's even bigger?
We don't, just to answer your question, I don't believe we have a definition of workforce. And I think, quite honestly, that,
The reason I ask is because usually people come to the table if they've got a stake. And so if I'm in community college or I'm in Vermont State College System, or I'm, I don't know, a variety of places. Do you envision this office would oversee, you said you would prioritize funding, so it would come in and say, we would prefer to, that funding for an apprenticeship program is of higher priority than funding first year tuition in CCD, which is higher. In other words, I wasn't sure when you start talking about whose program, who's funding, and what's in and what's out, it becomes a very delicate discussion. And it actually could put the workforce, have a purview that could be extremely expansive and very contentious. So I'm just wondering how tightly this is defined in terms of what will be the scope and what will be the authority of the office relative to so many other different programs. I see VR is it's a funder, that's certainly true, but it's designed to serve a certain population.
right,
So
I would argue that probably each one of our workforce programs and or classes and or CT firms, whatever they are designed for very specific populations.
well,
Some of them are and some aren't.
Yeah.
And the job, as we hope, that this office will be the umbrella for all our efforts, so that we know in one place, so we can measure in one place our success. And we can have in one place a voice for what the priorities are for any new programs or any expansion or funding of it. Or funding.
center line.
Yeah, so, as I'm looking through, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not seeing anything about, market analysis based on sector. And is there anything in here for that? I've done market analysis for healthcare workforce in that. And I know what it entails. I know, but there's nothing in here that really identifies workforce sectors or identification of market analysis based for those sectors, whether it's technology, industrial, whatever it is, whether it's healthcare. So,
Of the labor market analysis.
yeah, so
I assume that that would be done. That is part of, that would be part of the job, is that to understand
well,
and
but
to
that's
measure
really
how
critical
how
when you're
success-
looking at workforce, you look at external analyses that have already been done. What's the national sector look like, and then what does the state sector look like, and do your local, right?
I agree.
So it shouldn't there be something in here on directing the group to design some market analysis based on individual sectors. Otherwise, say, I agree with Senator Kitchell, you're gonna run into this little competitive process where one group thinks one is more important and let's focus on that rather than do the upfront
I would,
data analysis.
I would argue that we're already in that competitive process because.
Well, let's not do it.
Yeah, no, I would argue that we are trying to reduce that and have one set of eyes, i.e. one office that is actually looking and doing all that analysis and coming to us with recommendations of what to continue, what to continue, what to support, what to fund, how to fund it. I mean, a lot of these, it'll take a while to figure out how to coordinate it all and how to create this system.
Yeah, I get that. I know this is probably
So,
talking
it's a-
about your policy piece that isn't our purview. However, there are already models and paradigms for doing workforce analysis.
Well, are you
Yeah.
looking at,
Probably.
certain part in terms of what will be the duties of this office?
Yeah, no,
Yeah, that seems like what you're saying is they should
They
have,
would be doing.
that this is a basic function because you wanna be training people to make buggy whips when cars are being built or something. So,
I-
Senator Starr, I'm gonna move on and then I see that Ledge Council,
Yeah,
wants to weigh in.
The way the board's gonna be set up with no one from UVM, they're crossed out, right? On pages.
Yeah,
They're
you're
in
in
control.
control, yes.
And, but it's number 5 that I'm concerned about are Vermont State College, basically Randolph, which used to be a technical school.
Are you on a special page, Bonnie? Did you?
Yeah, page 3. at the
3.
bottom. If you've got this magnificent board that's thinking about ways of employing, getting people employed, and they need training, I would think that somebody from a technical point of view, like Vermont State Colleges, should be sitting on that board to say to the board, well, no, it's gonna take us 3 years to get this set up, or 2 years, or we can do that in 6 months. I mean, the little ag program down there that they run, they're on their 3rd year, I think, getting that reestablished and set up to run, and, you know, so that means we got 30 kids that missed out over those 3 years, maybe 40 kids, I don't know.
I guess maybe you're asking why the higher ed folk got struck from the list?
Yeah,
that
I
really
mean,
what you're asking?
somebody with some perspective in regards to further training of these people should be sitting there so that they could say, well, no, we can get that up and running in X number of months, or
So we
actually do
We have the Secretary of Education is.
needed in that study.
So, committee, we need to get going. We're kind of getting into the weeds about what this.
So we aren't losing any, I mean, we are losing some education people because obviously we had to cut from 63 to a more manageable number. We do have the Secretary of Education, and the State Workforce Development Board partners with all our workforce.
secretary, we got one.
We will, by the time this gets enacted. We will, obviously stakeholders and partners in workforce will all be included in the course of our work. And I think this is envisioned to do many more ad hoc, smaller committees that have specific focuses and purposes. So that in anything that would involve, some of the programs that would be at our state colleges or at the university, we would be including those partners. I can't imagine we wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Years ago, there used to be a jobs cabinet.
Yeah, there isn't one now.
Okay. So there isn't one. So the only thing here, and we can keep
Tell me.
saying what needs to be done, not the extent to which we want to spend time in terms of the
I had a
composition, et
comment on
cetera. So,
appropriation.
so what, the appropriations is just, this is gonna have to be funded as part of the work of our Department of Labor.
Well,
which
the
was-
paragraph above that says that appropriated to the, by the general system.
That's for legislators.
So where's that? So
There-
that comes
That's
from
in
the
the SOCWIC.
so the legislative, that money is just already appropriated.
Yes,
to
it's
the
part of the legislative budget, and because there's one member of the House,
That was
one member of the Senate.
Right, I just wondered where that money is.
So this is saving us a year by reauthorizing SOCWIC. The House had chosen to set up a whole new workforce, a whole new task force to address some of these final things like the job description, how we would work with the governor to make some recommendations, how to review the statutes and consolidate some of them, what to consolidate, what not, to do the final pieces that the House didn't feel that we had time this legislative session to do. I propose that SOCWIC be reauthorized to save us a whole year because the workforce is such a priority. Let's get the work finished so that we will have all our recommendations to the legislature in January for some of the more specific things. So that is why there is the SOCWIC's reauthorized in the final section.
If you want to put yourself on record and
Sure.
make any comments.
Rick Sable, Office List of Council, just speaking to the duties of this new office. I think section 4, which we're talking about now, helps to work this through. Is the Commissioner of Labor gonna do this? Is the Office of the Workforce Strategy person gonna do this? So we are aware of this kind of lack of clarity, and that's why this working group is going to work to clarify who has power over what, who leads what. So I hope that may answer some of your questions about the,
So it's yet to be determined.
as far as the direction, as far as the details. Of the training leader and workforce leader, that's to be sorted through with the working group.
I
In
think-
section 4.
All right, well, I guess we're all responding to sort of the enormity of the task, and everything is connected to everything else.
Right.
And the minute you start talking about workforce education, that brings in a host of policies and programs that we do not traditionally think of as workforce development.
But they are a big piece of it.
But the question really becomes the oversight, the authority, and the recommendations around funding. And so if I'm here saying I'm going to abdicate that to a workforce board, that has tremendous policy and fiscal implications. And so you can read into this as narrow or as broad as you want. The workforce investment boards were created and required under federal legislation. The history of their influence and impact is not stellar. I'll put it bluntly. They've been around for many, many years. I was on one. So I think it needs to be very clear in terms of this reauthorization, exactly where you're focusing your attention, because it can be very broad, very diffuse, and very contentious. So that's my only, I think we're saying is the work ahead. If you want to just say, we want the Department of Labor to really take the data it has, its knowledge of the workforce, the employer market, and where we are training our workers, and how, then, and the extent to which you're expanding that vision, I guess, is something this reauthorized group will have to really grapple with, because I can see that you're gonna have a lot of end runs if you say, no, we don't want to fund CCB anymore. We want to redirect those state dollars to X.
Right, and I don't think that that's the purpose of it. I think primarily this is a coordination and working together more effectively so that we don't duplicate efforts and that we are in fact creating a system, a seamless system of opportunity for people in
Okay,
Vermont.
so.
And I would welcome, as a person I hope will be serving again on SOCWED, I would welcome questions that you think we need to address during the course of our next 6 months.
Well, I guess probably getting a little bit more definition and also being clear on the scope and the duties and the authority of anything that we create is really going to be extremely important. And I guess the other part here, and that gets into how we use labor market information to influence policy. And also to identify, we talk about duplication and silo thinking. Where is that duplication occurring? And between what programs? And as opposed to a partnership, which occurs very frequently when you're dealing with specified populations, such as people who might have just been released from
Right.
a correctional facility, to welfare mothers, to people with disabilities, or programs that serve, the older population. So I think that's to take something and make it crisp, because I think that's
I think that's our objective.
and actionable.
Yes.
So
And Madam Chair, I'll say on line 16 on page 12, the scope is limited to NDSA 540, which is just kind of laying out the duties and who has, the workforce education duties. It's not a huge wide scope. It's narrowed to section 540, which is just talking about workforce education, workforce training. So we're not
that
giving them.
defined in the statute.
It is saying, well, not it's saying who's gonna lead workforce education. It doesn't say what workforce education is. It says who's gonna lead this. So my point was, the scope is quite to 540. We're not allowing them, giving them the keys to totally rethink the workforce system. But as far as who's gonna be in the driver's seat when it comes to certain things in workforce education.
But on line 16, or 14, you said.
16 on line 16 on page 12.
Yeah,
On page 12. Well, I'm sorry.
they need to just suggest.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so committee, does not involve any expenditure, I guess by creating a separate office. It's elevating the role of those workforce activities that currently have been inherent in the Department of Labor since Francis Perkins, I think, had envisioned it back in the Depression. Do we want to move the bill
Are
out?
we gonna hear from Cameron to see where they sit on this?
Well,
Or anything?
If you want, Cameron Wood is Director of the Unemployment Insurance Division. So you are, you're part of that labor exchange, which was providing public financial assistance at the same time linking that unemployed worker up with a job. So if you want to just speak to the department's position on the bill.
And Cameron was a very active participant in our work on SOCWED.
I can be very succinct here.
You want to put yourself on record?
Yes, ma'am. Cameron Wood, I'm also the Policy and Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Labor. So on this bill, the administration is supportive of it for a few things, and I'll try to hit on a few of the comments that were shared as well. This is the State Workforce Development Board. As many of you know, it is a federally required board as part of the federal workforce programs and funds that come to the state. And so what we are trying to do is, as Senator Clarkson mentioned, shrink the member size of that board. The challenge that we run into is anytime you add someone onto the board. So if we were to specifically, Senator Starr, to your points, add someone from a CTE center, for example, that was previously a member of the board. Every time you do that, you you have to add 2 business members because the federal government requires that the majority member be 50% plus business. And so that's where we run into problems is every time in the past where there's specific call outs for a person or a representative of group, you have to then add 2 more people every time.
Then you
And
need
so-
to do more in consultation with.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly.
100% agreed. And to Senator Clarkson's point that she brought up, there is the opportunity to create a lot of different ad hoc committees, which the board has done, I think, pretty actively over the
Successfully
past
when
few
they
years.
exist.
So the key thing also, the office that's being created and the board, they do have the legal administrative support of the Department of Labor. So all of our market analysis, our labor market information division, all of that information will be available to them and to the board. The last comment I will make, Madam Chair, to your point, I think there has been a lot of conversation about how broad in scope this should be. And I think that's where the department was very concerned about moving too quickly this session. We wanted to set up a review of the duties of this office. And to Senator Clarkson's point, that's where the reauthorization of the SOCWID came in, is to make sure that this office and the duties of this office are very clear and articulate, and we're not overstepping other authorities, especially our workforce development partners, Agency of Education, Agency of Human Services, et cetera. So that's giving us time to make sure that coordination aspect is very clear about where the duties are and what the authority is for this office. So.
Any questions? Okay. All right, we have a motion to adopt it.
Second,
You're welcome.
no, you weren't here for the clerk Bob's roll call. There was some comment, there was some comment. Right.
But maybe you can vote, it's up to us.
It's all of you.
We'll have it
I'll be
vote.
reviewing the record.
We'll go back and take your vote on the other. So we have a motion made to move the bill favorably, and unless there's further discussion, we did get a second, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the roll. Or you're gonna call the roll. I'm not.
wanna?
No, I don't. I need to take my head home and put it to bed.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Do you want to vote?
Are you gonna call my name?
She's mom.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Mine's yes.
Yes.
Sears,
Yes.
Stark,
Yes.
President Jeff, Mitchell.
Yes. Who has Department of Labor? Put the hand up.
Personally.
I don't know, will, whoever, can someone look and see, who is it? Who has Department of Labor?
It is Senator Birchland.
Oh, oh, all right. Thank you very much. Yes, everything. So, committee, we have one more bill that shouldn't take very
Thank
long.
you.
Thank you for coming back.
More follow.
One more bill. It's not on the list of secret service. No, neighbor.
Just
It's got my person.
Oh, yes.
So, you have a whole package.
Oh, paper cut?
Oh, paper cut.
Oh, I.
Oh, did you get one?
Well, you are.
Oh, dang.
You are.
Soak your
Soak your hands in salt water.
Yeah. Oh, it's
That's
so
what I'm
good.
getting. It'll feel bad.
Oh.
That's the way to
Look
go.
at that.
It sounds like.
Oh,
Rich.
what did you say? What did you say?
I can just open up.
Okay, all right.
I,
Soak
yeah,
your
that
hands in
should
salt
be
water.
really
Oh, okay.
And then.
So I need to find an ocean. Committee, we have the school construction bill, and this is just, Chris Rube is here from Joint Fiscal. He can run through this quickly, and then if you need to hear the reporter, Senator
Launch it, please.
Weeks.
Weeks is the reporter. We can schedule that. So why don't you come up, Chris, and we'll run through this quickly. And I think the reason we have this is a $15,000 general fund for the purpose of the group's travel, et cetera. So, it's a very modest appropriation attached to this, but the work obviously is really important. So, why don't you
Sure.
take it from there?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Chris Tripp, Joint Fiscal. I will, begin my brief presentation by letting you all know that I am not the expert on school construction or on this bill. I took the fiscal note on to take, something off the plate of my colleague
Well,
who
let me
does
ask,
work
how many
education.
members of this committee have read the report on school construction?
I've read summary, yeah.
Yeah.
Summary.
Well, for,
Yeah.
so
So,
I've been several.
The latest one that talks about, you know, the huge demand
Right.
and how you prioritize what gets funded first and so forth.
right,
So this is taking
right.
up from where that bill left off.
Exactly, Madam Chair. So there was a, working group convened over the last summer, with, the Agency of Education and the State Treasurer. They provided a report, which is a fascinating read, which you alluded to, which is posted on the Legislative Reports website. I think it came out February 1st. And, the report, really articulated the scope of the need and estimated it to be about $6.35 million over 21 years for an average
Million?
billion,
I
Over
thought-
21 years.
I thought you said million, I was like, right, isn't right.
billion, sorry, and,
6 point, what is it again?
6.35.
Oh, that's almost one full budget year,
About
billion.
300 million a year on average. So, the report did a nice job, sort of summarizing the scope of the problem. Sort of the next step would be figuring out, all right, what would a school construction program look like? How would it work? What would the parameters be? So on and so forth. So hence the working group that would be authorized in the bill before you, H 871. I will say that out of the large issue with school construction out there, this is probably the least expensive aspect of it. A $15,000 appropriation is contained in the bill for the per diems and expenses and some potential travel reimbursements for the working group. It would be 6 legislators plus the Secretary of Education, so it would be a 7-member group authorized for per diems and expenses of up to 10 meetings. We expect that would cost approximately, roughly 15,000 as appropriated in section 5 of the bill. This $15,000 appropriation from the general fund to the General Assembly to cover these expenses is not in either the House or Senate budget construct. So that is just something to be mindful of, but that is really the only direct fiscal appropriation from the
Since
bill.
it's legislators, it would come out of the legislative budget.
But it's not explicitly included in the base.
We have a motion to move the bill,
Second.
and this is all legislators are
Second.
going to do.
All, so who's gonna write the report? Okay, who writes the report?
Not me, sir.
I think this.
Yeah, we're still having discussion, all right. Who's writing the report?
I don't know.
So it'd be a good time to defer to my colleague from Ledge Council.
All right, Beth St. James has just arrived, very
Gotta
timely.
read the report
Okay,
first.
are you writing the report, Beth?
Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel, I am writing the legislation. This working group will, their deliverable to you all is proposed legislation.
Oh, that's it.
They're writing their own
Proposed
report.
legislation.
There's no report, it's just proposed legislation.
It's proposed legislation, but this is an ongoing committee till 2029.
No,
Is that not right?
that is not accurate.
You
Okay.
have to go to public school.
Program.
Okay,
A grant.
Grant program.
Okay.
okay.
So somebody's gonna have to draft legislation.
And that will be me,
Okay.
or another member of my office, but the Office of Legislative Counsel and JFO are both staffing this committee. And there is one non-legislator member,
One.
Secretary.
the Secretary of Education or deputy,
We
yes.
don't have one.
doesn't AOE do the staffing?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, I
Who's
thought we
gonna
were
call the
very
meetings?
careful around
Coordinate
who
that.
was putting workload on
JFO.
JFO or Ledge Council.
Does it,
Well,
Do you have to
We've done
staff?
that,
do you have to staff the, committee meetings?
They must
Yes.
have a few people. You got
Doesn't,
Send minutes out,
That would not, I don't believe that would fall to me.
doesn't for the most
who
part,
does that?
I don't know.
Who
They-
covers-
It'd be Ledge Council if we leave it the way it is.
Yeah,
Who
it
covers
will,
that?
college council and
Who
JFO.
covers,
How many people in like council cover that?
Me,
well, and don't you draft everything that
Yeah,
comes in and it says proposed
I think
legislation?
10 meetings is way too many.
can I make a suggestion that we propose an amendment that would have the Agency of Education calling the meetings to order and maintaining records, should there be any,
General staffing.
general staffing?
And then
The question becomes one though, are they gonna be making references to state law changes?
I'm sure we get a
That's
warm
what the-
welcome.
Oh, I'm sure they would as part of the
Right.
group,
A
so
lot of general.
legislative council they could consult the legislative council on
Right, there.
drafting legislation.
Still draft the legislation, but you wouldn't have to be calling the meetings and doing all that.
if I could,
Yeah, please.
thank you. The working group on page 12.
Well, has the administrative, technical, and legal of
Right.
agency of education.
So I would provide the legal assistant
Okay, he's done.
and perhaps the technical, my office. And the Office of Legislative Operations is also
So they'd schedule a meeting.
correct. The first meeting, I will call the first meeting of the working group to occur. And then once they select a chair, I will just be attending meetings like I would attend any committee meeting. Right? So if they have something that they want me to testify on, I would do that. Then I would be attending meetings, just like when we are in session, how Ledge Council attends meetings. And then this legislation contemplates that the end result instead of a report would be a draft bill.
Okay, so
So just to clarify,
Yeah.
$15,000 is for travel, not for the attending the meetings. The attending the meeting, is regular general assembly. Right?
what do you get paid per diem?
The $15,000 would be for per diem and reimbursement and travel.
Where are they traveling?
From wherever you live, if you have to be one of the,
Wherever they meet.
Yeah.
They're meeting in
Or they traveling around
Newport,
and looking at
they're-
schools.
That's
Bennington
what I'm wondering.
member, they have to travel
To read the list.
600 miles.
But the group is gonna be traveling around and looking at schools.
Or that way.
They are authorized to do that, yes.
But
it's in here.
Should go.
I want to question the need for 10 meetings. Then I would like to see a discussion of at least having 6. With the ability to call for more through the pro tem meeting,
Okay,
if that necessary. That would be our amendment.
we normally,
The normal Alice Nick amendment, yes.
well, thank you for
Do you know
challenge.
where they're planning to travel to and fro frequently?
I don't, I can tell you the states and the schools in Vermont that have come up for discussion, but I don't know about any specific plans.
Well, it seems like whoever put the 15,000 must have calculated that, let's save a bit on per diem if we do it at 6. And for the approval, for the speaker and pro tem, if more are needed. And,
See why
It's
he's
interesting.
trying to push this through. He wants to be a member of the committee and he didn't
Yeah, but
have any.
is that list on page 11 and 12?
they're just who you consult with. The
They're not-
working group will consult with,
All of them. Yeah.
I believe so.
So they're gonna need 10 meetings then because
Yeah,
they're
consultation.
Well, do they need more than 6, they can come back.
They can-
As long as-
Volunteer.
Well,
Meetings. Meetings.
Yeah.
You can meet all day.
Gotta go meet.
so it's the following entities that, which is interesting because the Agency of Education is on the working group itself, so the Agency of Education
Consult with
is
itself.
gonna consult with itself, I guess, okay? But
Yeah, sometimes.
I always do it, I do it every day.
Consulting. with your-
Natural Resources,
In the cover.
Natural Resources Board, I did have this is nothing necessarily to do with much of anything, but on page 3. Do we expect each supervisory union to have a different educational mission, vision, and goal? It seems to me all supervisory, unions should have a consistent, I mean,
Bless you.
we're interested in terms of, it's on page 3. And then, it's on 11,
9 and
A 9.
10.
9 and 10, I'm sorry. It's on page 3, A. I can see where educational programs and services might differ. It's just kind of interesting how an educational mission or goal would vary.
Isn't there a state?
I would think,
Yeah. I've asked the Agency of Education that question in the past and haven't been a satisfactory answer.
I can give you one.
Joey.
all right, please, Beth is about to help enlighten us.
The State Board of Education is required to. I'm just looking for the exact language.
Well, this is the agency shall develop minimum requirements. That's where this is under.
Hold on one moment. The state board is required to engage local school board members and the broader education community, and regularly update a long-term strategic vision for the delivery of educational services in Vermont. That is just one of many powers or duties that the state board has. Their current vision is on their website.
Oh, but I'm not on the board at all, Beth. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. On page 3, starting with line 6, the agency shall develop minimum requirements that will include 1A, a description of educational mission, vision, and goals of supervisory union. I'm just wondering why, do we think that each supervisory union should have its own distinct mission and vision?
I think, yeah, that's possible.
Well,
And certainly want ours to be different than Chittenden counties.
It sounds like a personalized learning plan.
It does,
yeah,
it does. I put that in.
I think,
No offense.
I don't know.
Depends on where you live in Bolton.
Look, I'm not redoing it. It's kind of an interesting sign that we would have different, but Senator Pursley.
So should the report that the agency has to do every year is on the grant program that's going to be established by the working group's proposed legislation? Or is it a
No.
different one?
The grant program is totally separate from the working group as far as deliverables. So the report requirement is just AOE reporting to you all, who's getting grants, how is the grant program running?
But isn't,
And then the working group is 1 year, just this summer, on making a proposal for state aid school construction.
which is different than the grant.
Correct. The grant program is to facilitate supervisory unions in coming up with a facilities master plan. My understanding from all of the testimony, I am not a construction, I've never staffed the capital construction bill, right? So my understanding from the testimony is that developing a school facilities master plan is a very involved process that involves some use of experts or a consultant. And so the grant program would theoretically be to pay for that consultant work.
And where's that money from?
It says
There is no
appropriated
appropriation.
for this purpose too, so we're creating something with no money.
And so they're gonna have to report on it, even if there's no money, that there's no program. I guess the report would be very short.
It's gonna get wound into their budgets, which is the way I'm saying would be the ed funds ultimately.
Well, under Act 60, there is provision for construction, I believe,
That program has been paused since 2007.
Right.
mhm.
That's the more.
No, you're talking about the moratorium on the state share of bonding that was in the capital bill?
Yeah.
There's more to it than that, but yes.
All right. And there was a person at AOE that would review those plans, as part of the state's 30% participation in the cost of the capital. And then we had such a backlog Senator, Governor Scott was then senator, and chair of, Senate institutions, and the backlog was multi-years, long, and so there was a moratorium put on, but that was,
I believe that was John Rogers in the House who was.
okay, so
For
grants, will be awarded to the highest facility needs, all right, but this doesn't deal with how you would fund the grants or anything.
There is no appropriation to fund the grants in this bill.
Well, I certainly don't think I would want to put my hand up to be one of the members from the Senate to be appointed. I just want to go on record,
Likewise.
Mr. Pro Tem.
everybody takes this one. Well, I do know several people who have already asked me to be on it, so there are enthusiastic participants.
They're glad.
Yeah.
All right, so committee, what we are is,
Yeah.
15,000, to support the
No,
work
not
of
tell
this
you.
working group.
It doesn't need to be appropriated as soon as it's already just considered the legislative
Yes,
operation
right.
budget.
Yes. We're not,
Madam Chair, the bill currently explicitly appropriates money in section 5, so it might be helpful to give Ledge Council direction on what you're envisioning like that.
well, I guess we would just use our standard that, I mean, for legislators to get the per diem, the, secretary of the agency is getting compensated through their budget, so we don't need to appropriate anything. Other than whatever we do for any of the other totally legislative oversight. You know what the language is on that? Well, we don't need to do a separate 15,000, we just are saying
That's the question.
you'll have to suck it up in the legislative budget.
Including travel expenses.
Yeah, that's, yeah, travel.
Even if it's travel to school, not to the meeting.
Yeah, it's fine, it's a
Travel to a meeting is a travel to a meeting.
So we need to get, our standard language around reimbursement that, members.
That is,
Well, I believe that's what this is.
Well, my question, Madam Chair, is whether or not the committee would want to strike section 5 in its entirety, because that is the section that contains.
My question is, if I strike it, do we need to put anything in, or just by creation of this work group?
So
It would be, authorized activity and therefore eligible to have the per diem and.
section 4 does contain language, I think, to that effect, page
Section-
15. So page 13 lines, if you're looking at the same version, I'm.
Oh, yeah, it does take care of it. So I would just say, let's get rid of, delete section 5. In its entirety, because, as Chris just pointed out, compensation and reimbursement shall be entitled to per diem and reimbursement for not more than 10-minute meetings. And so we're modifying that section anyway to limit it to 6 and additional up to, minute maximum of 10, will be authorized by the speaker and the pro tem.
What do you got? Section,
On page 13, line 6, we will add compensation and reimbursement. Included in that, which takes care of paying whoever is appointed. It says pursuant for not more than 10 meetings. And what we'll add there for not more than 6 unless authorized by the speaker and pro tem up to a maximum of 10.
So was the intent of section 5 to allow people to travel a greater distance for those meetings to have site visits to schools? And for me, I'm happy striking that out, even with that. Because I think you go to a
Whatever you
meeting, you go
travel
to a
is
meeting.
billable anything.
Yeah, you go to a meeting,
So-
you go to
I
a
mean, if
meeting.
And so if they want to meet at Mount Anthony,
Right.
then the travel would just be
Yeah.
based on
Usually
actual
it
mileage.
averages out, but I know many times
well,
we met in Springfield on justice
That's
oversight. For you, it was a longer trip. For Alice, it was no trip.
well, if they have an electric car,
Yeah.
they shouldn't be reimbursed because they don't pay anything in.
Well,
you should pay, man.
Now they're paying.
so committee, I'm gonna suggest we don't need to do a separate appropriation. It's just something that we'll have to fund. So we'll delete section 5 and we will amend, section 4, line page 13, line
Right.
6, on compensation and
Wouldn't
reimbursement.
surprise
And
you.
put in the language about the number of meetings, 6,
Yes,
with more.
Counselor
requirements.
St. James gonna draft that amendment.
I think,
yes, I am scheduled across the hall on the yield bill for the rest of the afternoon, so I will do my best to fit that in between.
it's fine, we can do a tentative vote, and then even if you have it tomorrow, this should be all right for this.
Yeah.
Okay. So committee, you have a motion, you said,
We're not done. We have motion made and seconded.
and we voted on it?
Who made the
We're
motion?
ready.
I was gonna say, I must have.
We're ready.
Who made the motion?
Tried to sneak one in before, while Senator Kurtz was still asking questions.
Well, I wanted to know who made the motion.
Line,
Yes,
sorry,
Yeah,
they were running their mouths. Sears.
Sears says yes.
With explanation.
I said, yeah.
Westwood, yes. Mitchell,
Yes. Education is Senator for Ruth,
Yes, it is.
okay,
Did he?
and,
No, we just looked.
we will just hold it until tomorrow.
you might like this, he gave 2 thumbs up. What am I supposed
We
to
get
do?
Beth, because she's gotta go back across the hall.
I'm naively optimistic I will have something for you before I leave today. I just can't guarantee when.
All right, fine, whatever works for you, thank you. I know that's a priority to get that, bill underway.
To the shared building.
So, we have finished the bill